Hello, everyone. If you've listened to my videos for a while, you know that I was raised in a Christian home with a dad who studied for the ministry. Amazingly, though, until my senior year at the University of Michigan, I had never heard of evolution. I was then required to take an anthropology class. Sitting in that class, I would definitely have accepted evolution as fact if my dad hadn't stepped in. I shared with him that in class we were shown bones of monkeys and of the first men, along with an explanation of how the transition took place. My dad's response to me was this: "How do you know those bones actually came from a monkey or a first man? Remember, just because someone says something is true doesn't make it true." I immediately knew my dad was right, but my immature mind had accepted without verification or investigation all this so-called learned professor taught. A great deal of false teaching is at the core of our society's woes today. People conclude that if it is taught in schools by beloved teachers, it has to be true. But that teaching is now unacceptable to me as a Christian, and it shouldn't be acceptable to you either. So, let's discuss evolution today from a scientific perspective. I pray I make this as simple and as easy to understand as possible. First, let's be very clear that evolution is a theory, not a fact. If proven, it will become both a fact and a law. Many forget the fact that it is now simply a theory that requires DNA to replicate over and over again to be true. Science has proven, however, that in a replication process, DNA actually weakens and gets more disordered. That is a reason we die. I present this question to you then: can weakened DNA that leads to our death turn itself into another human being? Can the DNA of a monkey, which weakens over time, really become a man? Here are some arguments regarding this. Truth is, whatever begins to exist must have a cause that brought it into existence. Our universe had a beginning. The law of thermodynamics says it is not possible for the universe to have always existed. So, something or someone began the universe. This law says energy can be converted, but it cannot be created or destroyed. Energy is always conserved. The amount of energy remains the same as it changes to different energy forms. The more times we use this energy, however, the less quality it has, and the more disorganized it becomes. Remember that. Evolution requires organization, not disorganization, to change life. Now let's talk about life itself. Life is arranged in a complex, specific order to communicate a specific purpose. Absolutely nothing can come into being one step at a time. There are 150 different constants required for life to exist. Life is given DNA that contains information. Information is a byproduct of intelligence. Thus, it makes perfect sense that some kind of intelligence had to be involved in the creation of life. Knowing this, let's talk about the theory Charles Darwin used to set his evolution belief into motion. It is called the primordial soup theory, brought forward in 1929 by J.B.S. Haldane. It was accepted for 80 plus years. That's 80 years. It states that oceans filled with essential elements of life and an electrical storm created simple organic compounds. That is true. These compounds have been formed on a small scale in a laboratory. But listen carefully now. Despite many tries, a living cell has never been produced in a lab. No cell, no life. Critics of this theory say there is no sustained driving force to make things react, and an energy source is needed for DNA to sustain life. Thus, the primordial soup theory was rejected in 2016 because it can't explain how living cells evolve. 3 cheers for God. Therefore, Darwin's theory is now unsustainable. Truth is, 4 forces of nature have to exist for life to happen: magnetism, gravity, strong nuclear forces, and weak nuclear forces. Here, though, is for Christians the exciting lab discovery where DNA is concerned, which I believe supports our belief that God created us. It has been determined that DNA contains sulfur bridges that are needed for some proteins, and these bridges are repeated over and over again in us. The bridges occur in our DNA at 10, 5, 6, and 5. If Jewish letters are assigned to these bridges, they spell YHWH, or Yahweh, God's name. God's name, then, is actually written in our DNA. Wow! These sulfur bridges are found in amino acids in our body. There is also RNA. It is present in every living cell, and its job is to act as a messenger carrying instructions from DNA for controlling the synthesis of proteins. It is interesting that each RNA in our body is in the form of a cross. A name and a cross carried and embedded in each of us. I call that amazing. The Bible says in Psalm 139, verse 14, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. End quote. Yes, God, our bodies are amazing. They didn't evolve. That was scientifically proved in this message. They definitely came from you, just as you said. And everyone should read Psalm 148 As a wonderful conclusion to this video, it is well worth your time to do so. One final thought. Many will say, "We have seen things evolve and change. How do you explain that?" The answer is very simple. It is adaptation. God allows us and all things to adapt to the environment in which He has placed us. Skin is dark in areas of extreme sunlight and heat. Eyes are blue in cold countries near the Baltic Sea in Northern Europe. But interestingly, people had brown eyes many years ago. Then adaptation took place. Thanks for listening. I tried very hard to share complicated scientific proof to dispute evolution. Many, many thanks to a wonderful teacher who shared this information with me. You may have to listen to this video more than once to absorb it all. Remember, work done by scientists and released in 2016 disprove Darwin's theory of evolution. Share that truth with everyone you can. See you Thursday.